My name is Lucy. I'm 15 years old and might be facing over 25 years in prison because my parents betrayed me. Let me tell you all about how I could spend half my life behind bars. I come from a really wealthy family. My parents were really loaded and they bought me everything I wanted. I got a pony for my 11th birthday and a massive party every single year. They changed their cars often and would only wear clothes from expensive brands. My mom would rarely wear the same outfit twice. Mom and Dad didn't seem to work too often, so it was strange that they were so wealthy, but I rarely asked any questions. It wasn't my place to ask them what was going on since I was their daughter. They weren't particularly strict, really, and let me get away with anything I wanted to do. But they were very adamant about me having to respect their privacy, which to me, it seemed normal. You know, if you grow up raised in a certain way, it's not until someone tells you it's odd that you realize something is wrong. Every time the issue of their work came up, they'd act all nervous and change the subject immediately. I sometimes felt like pushing the subject a bit and finding out what was going on, but they ended up becoming upset. I'd carefully ask Dad what he did for a living or Mom why she didn't seem to work even from home. They told me I should respect them, and asking such questions was being ungrateful and rude. I'll be honest, I did try and continue voicing my doubts a few more times, especially as I grew older, but once we got into a massive fight. They told me I could go live with my aunts or uncles if I was so worried about their employment status. That really scared me, since my dad and mom had never threatened to kick me out before. So I stopped asking altogether and decided it was better to trust them. That was the biggest mistake of my life. How could I imagine that my own parents, who seemed to love me more than anyone else in their lives, would betray me? As far as I know, moms and dads are supposed to care deeply for their children. They're supposed to protect them against the entire world, not use them as pawns. That's exactly what my parents were doing with me. I was really spoiled, and so it became easier to ignore the warning signs. Everything I asked for, they bought for me. I also went to an amazing school, and my parents promised that when I graduated, they would pay for the college of my choice. Something weird did begin to happen when I turned 13, but I never truly worried about it back then. My mom would have me sign all these documents. I asked what it was about, but she told me it was all right, that it was just paperwork for the school and my extracurricular activities. Those documents seemed too official to be anything like that, but Mom insisted so much I ended up signing them. And then came more papers I had to put my initials on, and I just agreed over and over again. Why should I be concerned? I was underage and my parents took great care of me. Clearly, they knew better. So I kept signing and signing without even reading a single line. Nowadays, I can't believe I could have been so foolish, but there was no way I could have suspected my mom and dad. They were really loving, and I believed their lies like any teenager would have. My life seemed perfect, or at least it did until the FBI showed up at our doorstep. They took my mom and dad away, and they told me to call their lawyers, that everything would be okay. I freaked out, of course. I was only 15 years old and found myself all alone in that big mansion, wondering what was happening to my mom and dad. I called my parents' lawyers, who told me I had done the right thing. They paid them a visit and then came and talked to me. They told me it was all going to be all right, and I was so relieved. Then they put even more documents in front of me and told me my mom said I needed to sign those as well. I was so emotionally drained that I didn't even hesitate. I just signed my name on the dotted line. At first, the lawyers tried to avoid telling me why my parents had been taken away. They kept repeating it was all a big misunderstanding and my folks would come back home soon. Meanwhile, my favorite aunt came to stay with me. Her name is Anna, and she was so supportive and kind. I didn't know soon she'd become my rock. Anna was the one who helped me discover the real reason behind my parents' imprisonment. Apparently, they were involved in this massive scam, and that was where all the money came from. They had swindled hundreds of people out of their hard-earned money through some kind of pyramid scheme. All the gifts they had given had come from the suffering of innocent citizens who trusted my parents. I didn't know what to do. You can imagine how upset I was, how disappointed I felt about what my parents had done to all those naive people. At the same time, I wondered how I could have been so silly not to realize they were clearly involved in some kind of crime. My parents were eventually freed, and I didn't know if I felt happy and relieved or angry about this fact. They arrived home, and my aunt stood by my side. My parents were surprisingly cold toward me and didn't try to hug me. They instead informed me that I was in a lot of trouble and that they were really disappointed in me. I didn't really have time to process any of it. 2 FBI agents were standing by my parents' side, and they looked so angry as well. They told me I needed to go with them for questioning. I didn't understand why they'd need to speak to me. After all, I didn't know a thing about my parents' scams, but they didn't listen to my protests. I was surprised my parents just let them take me away instead of defending me. My aunt tried to stop them, but there was nothing she could do. I can still remember her screaming at my parents to do something. My mom replied that I needed to take responsibility for my mistakes. What mistakes? I never did anything wrong. I didn't even cheat on my exams. I might have been a bit spoiled, but I was a good kid overall. I was taken to this small interrogation room like I was some kind of criminal. My parents were supposed to be present since I was underage, but they weren't around. Later, I would find out they signed a permission for me to be questioned without their supervision. It was pure madness. The FBI agents began asking me all kinds of questions. I could barely stop crying, and one of them tried to calm me down. Now I realize they were probably playing good cop, bad cop. I completely bought their act, of course. When I stopped sobbing, the accusations began. They showed me bank statements with my name on them. There was so much money there, and I was the one who was supposed to be responsible for it. I told them the truth. I never had anything to do with my parents' scams, and I was completely innocent, but they didn't believe me. They kept accusing me of all these crazy charges and wouldn't understand it was impossible for a girl my age to be the criminal mastermind they believed me to be. What's worse, they told me all the documents I had signed. There were dozens of them. Now I understand that my parents had completely set me up. They made me look like I was some kind of genius who had taken advantage of the system. I told the FBI agents that I had just signed what my mom had told me to, but they refused to listen. They said that I wasn't silly enough to do anything so foolish. I wish they had been right. Then I wouldn't have been in that mess. If I had simply refused to sign a single piece of paper, I would be safe. I was given a lawyer since I couldn't afford one, and a hearing day was arranged. I was so nervous, I couldn't stop trembling when I entered the courtroom. My parents weren't there, but my Aunt Anna was. She rushed to me and we hugged before the bailiff had us step away. The judge assigned to my case allowed me to remain on house arrest while I waited for my trial, but I absolutely refused to stay with my parents. They were monsters who had created this web of lies to blame their own daughter for their crimes. I had always believed that my mom and dad loved me so much, but now I knew the whole truth. My refusal was a problem since I couldn't leave all on my own, but lucky for me, my aunt stood up for me as she always had. She took complete responsibility for me in front of the judge, and I was released under her care. My aunt took me into her home, and I'm really grateful for it. She fired the official defender I got and is paying for a good lawyer. She wants to prove the truth behind all this scam. Anna and I cut off all ties with my mom and dad, as did the rest of my extended family. My grandmom and cousins all fully support me, of course. They know my parents are the guilty ones and that a girl my age would never be involved in anything so sordid. They think it's ridiculous anyone would believe a 15-year-old could be a criminal mastermind, and they know I'm a good kid. I hope the judge and the jury will see this as clearly as my family does. If they don't, I could be facing 25 years in jail. My lawyers explain that the trial will be long and that my parents will be testifying against me. I can't believe that they'll sit there in court and blame their own crimes on me, lying to everyone about what happened. My aunt already warned me this will be a painful process, and I'm honestly not sure I'm ready for it. Will they really be capable of staring their only daughter in the eye and say that she's the one responsible for scamming so many innocent people out of the money they worked so hard to save up? I wish I could avoid being in the room when they have to testify, as I don't know what I'll do when I see them. I might break down sobbing, or scream at them, or tell them how much I hate them for everything they did to me. for tricking me into signing all those documents and making me feel guilty when I tried to refuse the first time. What is worse, my mom and dad didn't even try to contact me once since I moved into my aunt's house. It's like they completely forgot they have a daughter at all. I bet they do it to make it look like they are so disappointed at me. Thanks for watching. What's the worst thing your parents or someone you love ever did to you? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and check out the other videos on the channel.